Welcome back to the FD podcast. I know it confuses a few of you because we've got an empowerment series and we have the regular podcast. This is episode 2 of the empowerment series, and we are calling this Burnout to Breakthrough.
Correct.
I just tried to rehearse that for 10 minutes and just about fluffed it. This is a story of how long-term pain can become long-term change. As always, Alana, I know a fat loss girl.
Good.
Is
Hello.
next to me as co-host, and we'd like to welcome long-term client and friend Miss Nicci Clark.
Hello.
Nicci, as we did with Natalie, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about you, who you are, where you come from, and why we know each other, which I think is the best place to start before we go through the trualities of burnout.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So I've been with you for 2 years now, coming up to my 3rd photo shoot, which I'm doing in November. I am 41. I live in the Cotswolds, which we'll talk about that story. And I am a marketing and culinary director for probably one of the largest food and drink companies in the UK and the largest employer in France. So food and drink is around me all the time, which will dovetail into the story at some point. And yeah, my story is about burnout and how I turned that into a breakthrough moment, and how everything changed when I met really you and Alana, Scott.
So as we've done with Alana, who everyone knows, let's talk about what burnout means to you and where burnout came from. And more importantly, which I find, and we did with Kirsty today on our ADHD pod, how serious was the burnout and what led you to be where you are today?
Great question. So I think my story really starts, my kind of journey to burnout starts 7 years ago. And then I had an incident about 2 years ago. So 7 years ago, I faced quite a traumatic situation. My partner passed away of cancer. It was really quick, 12 days from diagnosis to passing away. And after that journey, I have to say, I did what I classed as all the right things. I went back to the gym, I ate well, I didn't drink, I stayed close to family and friends, and I just kept saying to everybody, I'm okay. I did therapy, and for the next 5 years, all I kept saying is I'm okay. And in those 5 years, I moved house, I took several new executive jobs, and then lockdown happened. And that was really the start of kind of everything starting to, I stopped and everything started to get on top of me. And then about 2 years ago, I really faced extreme burnout. And burnout means to me is, I couldn't make a decision. I was constantly exhausted. I'd wake up and every part of my body would ache. I'd feel like I'd been hit by a bus, if I'm completely honest. Every decision was just too much for me. I'd cry every day. I put on about 3 stone. I now realise the reason I put on the 3 stone, I wasn't moving, I was eating, but at the time it was like, I'm stressed, I'm perimenopausal, this is the reason I'm putting on weight. And we know that's now not true, but it was, a symptom of events. I didn't want to go out. I kept saying I don't feel myself, and chronic fatigue. Just, my body constantly ached, in pain. I had migraines every week. I was sick every week. And it got to the point where I just didn't really want to be here. And I remember the moment when I walked into the doctor's at 7 p.m. on a Friday night, and she asked me how my week had been. And I described the normal 100 hours that I'd done here, there and everywhere around the country. And she just said, this can't continue. And that was really one of the moments I remember, second to when I found you sitting at the kitchen table, that I really remember in this journey.
So, 7 years before you go through something which sadly must have been just the shock of all shocks.
Yeah.
What type of person were you before that? Were you someone who, not that anyone could possibly deal with that kind of tragedy for a loved one, but what type of person was Nicci Clark before that?
I was resilient, but constantly sort of self-doubting myself. I had trained for about 10 years, but I'd never really looked at my food. And I trained probably to a moderate level of lifting weights, but not really understanding the benefits of being consistent, progressive overload, and really honing in on your nutrition. I was successful, I was driven, I was ambitious, but I cannot describe to you the self-doubt behind the scenes. So I never really believed in myself. I guess I was the classic, on paper it looked like I had it all, but behind the scenes the wheels were probably falling off, but I would do a really good job of hiding that. I'm probably your classic functional, high-achieving, functional depressive, if I'm really being honest.
And Alana, you've spoken about this a lot, haven't you? Is
Yeah.
the way the high-achieving women like you cope with depression in terms of you throw yourself at anything and everything, and that kind of masks it. Is that something you felt before? You know how that feels?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's quite a thing with women as well. And I think, I know we touched upon this imposter syndrome as well. I feel like, I know we've had this conversation before with things. Everything's fine. We just cope and cope and cope. I think until you have that oh fuck moment. Oh my God, like I'm really not coping. But I think even with that, like, I think you don't want to admit it, do you? I think it takes I know it took for me to have that oh fuck moment. And I know you said the same, doesn't it? It's like, it's bewildering, isn't it? And it's just horrible. I think that sort of like, you don't know where to go for help or how to even get out of the hole. You're in a hole so deep, you just don't know how to get out.
Yeah, and I questioned how I'd even got there.
Yeah.
And when I look back now with a clear head, it was 5 years in the making, because for literally 5 years, just as you said, I just said I'm fine. Because to me, that was a sign of strength. I couldn't say, oh, I'm hurting. Oh, I don't want to go to work. I've cried in therapy every week. I just said to everybody, I'm fine. And, at 33 years of age, no one gives you a rule book of your partner's just died. Yeah, it was really young. Yeah.
To go through, and especially, the speed of that bereavement to a young woman, he must have been one of your main support networks, communication networks. It's like Alana said, when you got through that bereavement, which I find most of our listeners who are higher function will do, which is, right, let's grab a modality, work, gym, therapy, let's do things. And you said that took you 5 years to almost kind of run out of that energy.
Yeah, it did. So I knew I was a high achiever then, because I kept on, to all intents and purposes, to the outside world, performing.
Yeah.
I kept on moving up in my career. I bought the bigger house. At the point I met you, I was buying an even bigger house, which I didn't need, by the way. I was miserable. And it was all this success to the outside world. I had the sports car, I had the big house, I had the holidays, I had what it seemed a great friendship group, but I was miserable, Scott. I was absolutely miserable. I was saying yes to people. I was the classic people pleaser, just said yes, no accountability. The treat culture was there. I treated myself every week, whether that was alcohol, meals out, clothes I didn't need. It was just this, it was this excessive culture. But to the outside world, I was classed as a success. But it was, was hiding, masking. A few people knew, my parents knew, and a couple of my close friends knew how bad it was. But, to the outside world, I was classed as a success.
Also, I think now I know you on a personal level as well. You were still grieving.
Yeah.
And we'd had conversations when you just joined sorry, I'm jumping forward a little bit now, when you just joined the plan and you'd booked a trip away, and I literally remember standing in my back garden going, you've done what? Where do you think you're going? You've been on plan like a week. And I think we was on the phone for about 2 hours, and we just ended up talking about loads of stuff, and you was like, I've had therapy for X amount of years, but some of the conversations that we've had now, you've quizzed me on stuff and you've actually pulled me up to you've been no hold bars. Like I've had therapy from people, and you've like touched on so many things that I've not even actually thought of, and you were still grieving.
I was.
But I think you felt that you were box ticking.
It's that. Sorry to butt in. You've said a really interesting point, because people will tell you to obviously avoid pain, find pleasure. So buying the house, dopamine, bigger car, dopamine. But what they don't really realize is, for certain people and certain demographics, it's like people who will say to me, do you know what, Scott, I lost weight and I stopped online shopping. I'm like, I know, because you weren't online shopping for any reason other than you didn't have any dopamine that day. And all the dopamine was coming from hitting that button. So what you've described actually is a transference of energy. Instead of actually sitting in the things you should have been, on the outside world, you were working with your strengths. And a lot of the time when a good friend of mine diagnosed my recent anxiety, he was like, actually, for the last 20 years, every time you got anxious, you drove towards a goal, instead of actually being like, oh, I'm not actually driving to it for a good reason. I'm just avoiding something else. So as Alana said, at what point did you then, we will jump back, you had that doctor's moment, the burnout, spoke to Alana, joined the plan. And at what point did you look back and go, wow, the last 5 years have been different?
It was probably about 6 months in, and probably one of the most defining moments is sat on the Fulham bench. Do you remember that conversation? So say me and Alana are friends now. And we used to voice note each other all the time, and what became a business relationship became a friendship. So I remember there's been
a tough one.
A tough one. So one of the things I'll say is, and you share it, you didn't treat me with kid gloves. So if you have to remember, somebody had been through grief, lots of people didn't really know what to do with me, and were like, oh, she's been through a tough time, let her have that glass of champagne.
I dealt with someone grief this morning, and I think until you know someone's sincerity, and I've been through 3 lots of grief in the last 3 years, and people even with me don't understand that someone passing doesn't mean your life stops, and nor should it. And I say that without kid gloves. And I think, but the funny thing is, sorry to listen to you too, is the hard conversations I had with Alana when she started, or the hard conversations she had with you, and hopefully you will have with someone else. And just as a side note, I love the way people take on and pass on lessons.
100%. And I needed that, because otherwise it was just constantly using that as a crux to justify my behaviour, which wasn't okay. So it was like, you need to stop the drinking. You need to stop, buying all these clothes. You need to stop going out for these little treat meals all the time. And you just really need to work out, eat your food, really look at, you don't need to go out for a meal 3 times a week. You remember you saying to me, there are other activities you can do with your friends. So what about going for a walk, going for a coffee, going to the gym?
You're not a dog, Nicci. You don't need to treat every time you've done a good job.
I do.
Saying that to you, and you went, oh my God,
it's
you're
so valid though, isn't it?
Bloody brutal.
Because the wheels will fall off at some point.
You're not a bloody dog. You don't need a bloody treat.
Yeah, and I remember, so one of the defining moments was the Fulham bench conversation. So at this point, I'm walking along to go and watch Fulham, which is through work, and I'm talking about moving house and making a big move to the Cotswolds. And I remember phoning Alana saying, this house sale's fallen through, I don't know what to do. And she's like, just rent a house, you're on this journey now, just go and rent a house. And that's what I did. And I just remember, the clarity of judgment and the willingness I was able to make these decisions that I just would never have done before. And it was all quite easy. Everyone just said, once your head had gone, once you'd got better, once you'd lost the weight, once you'd found your focus, your purpose, found my confidence grew massively, skyrocketed. And quite frankly, I didn't accept behaviour that I'd accepted before. And once my head is gone on a decision now, we go, that's it. And I'll seek advice, I'll take counsel, I'll weigh up the pros and cons. But then I'm like, no, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm doing for me. And that, I just remember that bench conversation. There's been many, and the other one that sticks in my mind is, I was thinking about this morning, I never actually looked back at my photos, and you sent me 6 months. I remember exactly where I was sitting. I'd been on plan 6 months, dropped about 17 kg, and you sent me...
It's close to 3 stone,
yeah,
which again, and I say this to women all over the world I coach, it's wild that a lot of women, and it is a lot, lose significant amounts of weight, because you're only 5'2", 5'4". Like that's a significant amount of weight.
Yeah.
You'll visually see it. But people go to me, didn't even look back, and I'm like...
Yeah. I never did. And I remember where we were sitting, it was just a normal check-in. It was March, normal check-in, and it was the morning I checked in. And on the evening, you sent me the 2 photos side by side, all 3 of them, the front, the side, and the back photo. And I cried, and I was like, that's not me. I couldn't believe it, this swell of emotion, because the person that I saw in that photo when I first sent that check-in, I mean, you can see it in my posture, the underwear, my eyes. I mean, I look dead behind the eyes.
Remember we said you looked sad?
Yeah, it was awful. I felt sad for her. I couldn't even recognise her anymore. And bearing in mind during that journey, I'd been off work for 8 weeks. I'd gone back to an executive level role. The sad thing is, lots of the people then went off at work and said to me, but you made it okay to come back, and you came back so well. But I always shared my journey. I said, I really had to face into some of my demons. I trained with a coach. I ate the right foods. I stopped drinking. I said no more than I said yes. And I even had those conversations with my boss when I went back to work. But I'm proud that I opened up those conversations at exec level to say, actually, I'm not okay. And I've since coached and supported people through work who have needed that help. But the biggest thing I ever said to them is, you need to make some serious changes in your life. Because
I've got to interrupt you on that.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. To do it at that level is not a done thing.
You don't come back normally.
To be at that corporate level, you don't. It is a case of people just burn out, fall to the side, and then someone will step over you. that is
Usually people close to you will step over you.
yeah,
Yeah.
normally.
I coach it a lot, yeah.
But that is what happens in that corporate environment. So I could, for you to do that, come back and tell your story and go, oh, I was at this, I was at that. It's very brave. You've got to see, and you've led a new way now of like, it's actually okay to go, I'm burning out now. This isn't great. I need to go away and to rebuild yourself and then come back again. It's applaudable.
Thank
It's
you.
it's because it isn't a done thing
No,
at all.
it wasn't at the
People will
time.
get signed off sick and they won't return. So you've got to be proud of that you made a return, and
Thank you.
a hell of a return.
Hell of a return.
A hell of a return.
Yeah, because then, I got promoted within I probably had my best year. I literally just, I flew, and then I continued to work hard. I moved house. There's the famous moment when I was lying on a sun lounger, and I just moved to a village where I didn't know anybody. Not for work, not for a partner, for me, exactly what I wanted to do. 2 hours away, didn't know a soul in the village, and I've had one of the best years of my life, and that's continued for the last, 18 months since I've been on plan.
So let's hold you there in that moment. You're turning 40.
Yeah.
You're moving to a whole new area. You've gone through and are going through still an active bereavement, because obviously you're changing. So I use bereavement in the whole sense of you're shedding someone you were to someone you are. How did that feel? Because obviously, most people listen to this who've had jobs go, people go, relationships go, lost people, will be very reticent to start a journey because it all seems too much. So without spending 2 hours into exactly the day-to-day 1%, because, I think in Alana's podcast she covered a lot of that self-growth. From someone in the corporate world, what were the steps you first put in with us as a group to kind of say to myself, right, this is a step-by-step process. I've got into this, now I'm going to get out of it.
Yeah, so I think the steps are, things like we've shared about it, and I got some great tips from Alana. So I work away probably, 2 nights a week, and I'm not in one place. I can move around. So the steps are, prep your food, plan your food. I remember phoning Alana going, I've got to stay away and I don't know how I'm going to take this chicken away. It'll go off. She's like, just go to a Tesco's and buy your chicken and get portable scales. So I remember...
And take a cool bag with you.
So I remember, at the moment, I think I talked about it last week when we caught up, I literally know every hotel and gym. If the hotel hasn't got a gym, I know a gym within a mile, and I know the local sort of supermarket that I can go in. All the top tips that you shared around, what you can buy in a Pret or a Nando's or a Starbucks that is plan friendly. Before I even walk in there, I know exactly what I can get. So I haven't got this decision fatigue. I'm not walking aimlessly around supermarkets. Planning your workouts, if you need to swap your days, etc. If I've got a really long 18-hour day, I'm only going to get my cardio and my steps in that day, but that's fine. That's on my plan, but I make sure I hit everything the other days. I go for a walk at lunchtime. My colleagues will often, if we're in an exec meeting all day, they'll stay and be on their laptops. And actually now my boss looks at me and say, you're going for a walk? And yes, I am. And it's just consistency. I will often say, no, I'm not going out for a meal on the evening, and I'll go and do my workout and just eat my planned food. I say no more than I say yes. But the top tips are plan, prepare. No is a complete sentence. And, don't make the excuses. I mean, you can always get up a bit earlier and do a workout. And you can find a gym within a mile of where you are. We're not in the third world here. That there is a lot of access to a lot of things, and I think people just make excuses. And I look at Alana and Hayley and everybody else that's on this plan who have it a lot tougher than me, by the way, and they can find the time. So if they can, I can.
So something I wanted to pick up on and actively tell the listeners is, people will say, but I can't find, but I can't. And you're talking about a corporate level, high flying job where you've actively told and communicated, I'm not going for dinner. And she wasn't sacked. People say, oh, Scott, I can't possibly be rude. I say, you can. I know people in Japan who will tell people I'm not eating that next course. And in cultures where it's often rude, if they respect you, it's not rude, it's respect. You will go to a Tesco Express, and we joke all the time. People don't realize Tesco Express exists, But what you're actually saying, if I'm to paraphrase it all, is I am actively making choices which aren't breaking the bank and my back, but they're free from excuses, which are plan ahead, prepare ahead, and actually say no to things. For instance, people say, well, I can't go for a walk on my break. What will people think? And you're talking about, as Alana said, a position where it's probably, if anyone were to make the excuse, it probably is you at the corporate level, that people do look differently and a lot of people aren't in shape and they might shun you because you say no, but you're doing it, which means I will judge people all the way below you to say you can too.
Yeah, and remember, I work for the biggest food and drink supplier. Food and drink is, and I run the marketing, the culinary team. All I talk about all day, every day. It's everywhere. There's 100 chefs. I'd walk into meetings, but I think part of my success was just being really upfront and honest. And I almost
communication.
Yeah, and I almost coached them. I said, look, I'm on this plan. It's really helping me feel better. Everybody knew I'd been off. This wasn't a secret. And what I was determined, because I'd experienced that before in my life when after my partner had died, is you get two reactions from people. They either literally look at you in shock and horror, or they literally cross the street or cross the office because they don't want to talk to you because you pretty much experienced the worst thing they can imagine in their life. And what I didn't want when I went back to work was for people to just brush it under the carpet. I was like, hang on a minute, I've not been here for 8 weeks. Like, I've gone through a pretty big breakdown. Yeah. So I just wanted to be really honest with people, and I found that really helps. And nobody says anything if I say, look, I'm just going to go for a quick walk, I'll be back in 20 minutes. I'm not having that food today, I've got my own, or I'm just going to pop out and get a chicken salad. Nobody bats an eyelid. What are you expecting these people to say? No, you can't do that.
And I think not only that, I think you get the respect from it now, and to how you look now and how you are in yourself and the confidence that you've got, it must be a nice ripple effect for people underneath you now to go, do you know what, actually, I do want to go for a walk, or I know it's fine, I'm not having that meal. And I've been to a lot of functions with you, and we've been to some top-notch functions, Ascot to name one of few, and I was like, I'd love to come to Ascot, we had a lovely box, but I am on plan. And she went, of course you're on plan, right, what do you need? And I was like, well, probably a chicken salad. She went, well, I'm going to be having a chicken salad, I'm on plan, not going to be drinking, I'll make sure that we've got the alcohol-free gin, so, and it was, and it didn't, and it was just one of them, and nearly everyone sat around that table was like, I wish we could do what you girls do, because you both look bloody brilliant, and how great, and so it is. I think it's just breaking the cycle with it, and just sort of standing up for yourself, because when you walk away from these things, I think when I used to be a people pleaser, I think the only one who's walking away if you ever break your diet or you don't stick to things is you, when you've got to go and put the pair of jeans on the next day, or you knew you'd broke the plan. So I feel like, you get the respect from people in a pretty tough working environment, because it is just around food and drink constantly.
It is. I mean, there's 29 Michelin star chefs at Ascot. Like,
I wish I had I wish I
it.
had the frog emoji with the coffee to tell people that, you can say no.
Yeah.
And they go, but I can't. I'm like, Susan at Bingo in Doncaster, trust me, no one gives a shit if you bring your salad.
Totally.
Please don't give me that.
I mean, I used to rock in and say, here's my chicken salad. The worst moment I remember is then by accident, one of them, they decided to throw my food away that I'd prepped, and it was 2 days in the fridge. And I was like, why have you done that? But it's okay. I'd already mapped where the nearest Tesco Express was so I could go after work. So I think, look, there's always an option. Or I remember you saying to me, a couple of the phrases, don't be a dick at the buffet. And two, he was like, well, just, eat after the meeting and be hungry for an hour. But
the amount of people who
ridiculous.
said, and bless her, she's an amazing lady, no one will know, but she does. She went, oh, I forgot to bring my lunch. I went, how long before your next meal's due and you're leaving? She went, 2 hours. I went, have a water.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
You won't die. You don't have to have the pot noodle or people genuinely, and I say this to people unreservedly, you have enough stored energy, you'll be fine for 7 days.
Totally.
You don't just and the one that gets me, and it was a weird example for people to pick up on. One of the only times when Fox was obviously thought he had the meningitis, he had the strep B, and someone was like, how long have you been in hospital without eating? I went, about 10 hours. And they went, what are you going to do? And I went, not eat, have some coffee. And I genuinely replied to them and he might remember this guy, and he was like, aren't you hungry? I went, not really. My son's on an incubator getting needles stuck in him. And he went, but what are you going to do about eating? And I went, just kind of a meal when I get home. And he went, I need to do that. And I went, holy fuck, is that like a genius moment?
Yeah.
Like, what are you fearing? Well, I'm hungry. I went, not really. Like, I'm in a first world country. I've had breakfast. I've had some, what is this infatuation about? I'm hungry, I have to eat. I'm like, you probably need not to eat for a long time. Get used to it. We're not in, out Mongolia. It's not the last meal you're going to get. You don't have to walk a mile to get some rice. Calm down, which you've experienced at a corporate level, which I will argue, in terms of stress, makes you hungrier, because you're constantly having to fire, arguably, like a brain surgeon. These are decisions and hundreds of people beneath you. So if you can, go without for a bit,
Yeah, when it's in front of me. I mean, and literally, I have to say our teams are fantastic, and, we get everything all day you can imagine, the most amazing creations, the most amazing food, and it's all there and it will be replenished. Like, it is amazing. So this isn't just a normal buffet.
But you have a goal.
But I have a goal. And the thing I remember, just to share, support what Alana said, is, the person in front of you is trying to get you to do something. I'll have that drink, have that piece of cake. I just remember I used to look at them, I think I said it to you, and said, but you're not going to stop me getting in front of my goal, because when I leave here, I'm going to go and know I failed, wake up the next morning and feel bad that I've eaten sugar.
They don't feel bad for you.
They just walk off. They don't. So I think I used to write, before I got really strong at saying no, the other thing I used to do is write a couple of ways of saying no that were less, because I wasn't as confident when I was, first starting the journey. But now I'm just like, no. But, just a little, again, just prepare a couple of different ways of saying no. Thank you, but I've eaten. Thank you, I'm not hungry. Thank you.
I'd always say pull an allergy. I know,
I'm gluten-free.
I say to people a lot about drinking. I'm like,
say allergies.
Also, I'm not feeling well.
If you can't be a wanker like me, say, I'm on antibiotics, that's why I can't drink.
And
something like that.
It just stops it dead. But again, just prepare. But I guess my way of preparing was to just be upfront with everyone. And I'm a drip feeder. So I always drip feed little things as I'm testing the boundaries, and nobody pushed back. So I just keep drip feeding.
And now you've just got the full-on confidence like we all have. And we go, drink. No, I'm fine. Diet Coke, thank you. And then we just,
Well, I've trained my colleagues and my friends now. They know what to expect. You came and I was like, here's all the planned food. Here's my almonds that are stacked out and they're on plan. Everybody knows now. And my friendship groups have totally changed. And part of when I moved, a lot of the friends I met through the gym. So again, healthy habits who you spend your time with. Now it's not a problem.
And you've got a great group. To think that you, I went to stay with Nicci in the summer, and to think she just picked her world up. It had always been like a sort of thing that an itch she wanted to scratch, and I was like, just go and do it. Just go and do it. What's the worst thing? Rent yours out, rent somewhere there, go and give it a go. And off she went. And you took me there, and we went to one of your friends' houses, and they were all fitness people. All of them, they go and do paddle, which I was absolutely useless at when you took me for paddle, nearly had someone's head off. Paddle, like they just the community you've got there. You couldn't pick you up and put you in a much better surroundings. And I do feel like, I feel like the last 2 years, you have healed. You have, I feel, you're always going to grieve. But I feel like it's just mad, isn't it? That something that we always laugh about this and go, it was just meant to be a diet.
Yeah,
it was just meant to be a diet, and now look at us.
Yeah, it couldn't have.
Actually, do you know what? I was looking for a slogan for some marketing, and I'm going to tell everyone that I'm stealing around.
She's IPing that.
But do you know what's funny, actually? And I've always said it since, before any of you conceived of my even page. And it used to be the tagline. I used to say, it's more than a diet, because it was never meant to be a diet ever. When I conceived the Francis diet with one of my ex-business mentors, we were trying to actually get out of why following the discipline that brings the diet along actually feeds the rest of your life. Because people used to always say to me, and they'd say, how are you so good on your diet? I'm like, I'm only good on my diet because I'm not unhappy, and I'm not unhappy because I deal with everything else in my life. And they'd say, oh, so it's your life, not your diet. I'd say, well, find me someone who's happy, they'll never binge. Yeah. Find me someone who's happy, they've got no food noise. Find someone who's happy, they'll train harder. So it was the actual inverse. I was like, sign up for my diet and my training, and then we'll find, and Alana knows now because she's a coach, we'll find out what's actually wrong that's stopping you dieting hard. It's not meant to be a food plan.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle, and I think lots of people, don't understand it. But things like writing down the 3 things you're grateful for, and I still journal. That's something I'd not done before until I'd, started the Francis diet. I'd never been
powerful. Gratitude.
So powerful. I still do it now, and even when we're on the photo shoots, the girls will get their books out and write it. Before. I mean, it's.
Do you verbally do it?
I verbally, I have a little thing I say to myself every day that actually was given to me years before I started the Francis diet. So I stand in front of the mirror, and one of the nicest things is, I think I shared with you, to be 41 this year and actually like and love myself.
Yeah.
And to be comfortable in my own body.
Most people go a lifetime and never like themselves.
Do you know what? It gives me goosebumps. It actually makes me want to be a bit emotional, because I will always remember that phone call in the garden, and I remember thinking, I really have gone in a little bit hard on her, but when you've been through that knock on the door where you're like, I'm done with life, when you see it in someone else, and you really were, like, to see the whole full circle with this, it's really applaudable, Nick. Like, you've done so well with it. It's
I couldn't have done it without you, and with the friendship that's blossomed, it's been amazing.
it goes more than that. But I think you just genuinely want to help, and like the way that Scott has, how he maps things out, how he sets things, it's just amazing what can come from that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, discipline is freedom. It's one of the things we say, but I remember that. Let's face it, I didn't leave the house for 4 weeks. I was signed off sick. I didn't leave the house. And I remember finding you on Instagram. And that was, when we were talking in the garden, like, believe me, the wheels had fallen off. We were literally I remember me and my mum looking at each other because, again, I'd faced major trauma before. And the other side of the story I haven't shared is I sold my house on the Friday and my partner died on the Saturday. Like, this was triple trauma. So I'd faced major trauma before. So when everyone's like, oh, you're not resilient, you're not this, I really was. And I just couldn't, I was in such a dark place. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table and I found you on Instagram because somebody I followed from a previous plan I'd obviously tried. I tried 2 of Scott's major competitors. Tried them all. We don't mention their names. And obviously, had done the normal.
Is there another one?
Yeah, I haven't lost any weight this week. Don't worry about it. And I followed this girl and she'd put, 12-week plan. She looked amazing. Francis diet. And I remember clicking on it. It must have been 2:00. I was still in my dressing gown because I was off work, not leaving the house, thinking, what am I going to do? Really worried. I was really, really worried because I just couldn't see a way out of this dark place that I was in. And I went down the rabbit hole, and one of the things you had on there was a story about menopause, and you started early menopause, perimenopausal, which again at 38 at that time was quite early. And again, I was, blaming that. Well, it's because I'm perimenopausal, the usual. And I just lost myself down a rabbit hole for like hours. And then I'd signed up, and that's when we'd had the chat about why are you going on holiday. You should not go on holiday for signing up the plan. I will say this. I did actually lose weight on that holiday, but I knew if I didn't sign up and do it then, I would have bottled it. So, I did it, and
I promise you.
Yeah, I did. I lost over a kg that way. Yeah, you should not do that, by the way. But I was in such a place where I just needed something, and then that became my little purpose every day. I got up, I go to the gym. I remember not being able to eat. It sounds ridiculous now. I couldn't eat all the food you gave me because I was like, wow, this is loads. I'd never weighed my food, so I ordered my scales. You were like, get digital scales, get portable ones if you're away. So off I went on my little holiday with my portable scales because you shared all these brilliant tips and ideas. And I just carried on. And then by the time I went back to work, I'd already lost over a stone. So I looked visibly different. And then I never stopped. I remember signing up, I did VIP. It was probably about 16 weeks. And then I just went to 6 months. I bought my plan for my sister. She lost 3 stone. And
oh, of course.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. So
I saw her actually come up on WhatsApp stories the other day. And I forget, obviously.
Yeah, she looked amazing. I remember when she lost her weight, and I really felt like my sister had found herself again, and that was such a great feeling. And lots of people at work kept saying, but what have you done? And I was like, well, it's really quite simple. I work out every day. I have my food plan that's done for me, and I prep it. I'm not drinking 2 litres of water, do my gratitude. And then there's obviously other things I was doing, such as therapy. But ultimately, I was being held account. And one of the nicest things now all my work colleagues say to me is, but you're consistent. And my boss said in my review to me last week, don't stop going to the gym. So everyone knows I go to the gym about 6 a.m. Everybody knows not to call me before 9 at work. I'm obviously available for emergencies, but they all know that's my routine, and I don't mess with it, and they don't mess with it either. So if it's an emergency and I need to, but otherwise that's my time, and I'm very privileged to have that time. I don't have children or a partner, but that is my time, and nobody interferes with that.
So I'll actually jump to something before, but I'm going to go back to the word boundaries because that's something we've spoken about for 2 years. It's really nice hearing Alana talk about having a call with you where she told you, which I always call that moment where you realize your personal trauma is actually bigger than the outside trauma. As much as I'm not denigrating your outside trauma, but I tell people, if you can deal with inner trauma, you can near enough deal with anything that we all know life throws at us. Unfortunately, people come, people go, things go well, things go badly. But hearing you say when you put the phone down, you thought you'd gone too hard, was the same thing I said to myself when we had the call, and I thought I'd gone too hard. Yeah. But like you're very good at rationalizing why someone sincere gave you that information. So for me as a coach, because I always tell people, I would love everyone who does the plan to at some point in their life talk to someone else like I talk to them, because I know sincerely what I'm trying to do. So to hear you're here partially because of a conversation that she'd already had herself means the way it was encoded was right. Because when I had the conversation with Lana, I remember putting the phone down going, God, there's a 75% chance she's going to run off and call me a cunt now. Because I've literally just told her.
Throw herself off a bridge.
Well, yeah, because the thing is, I tell people a lot, and it's important for people who are here to listen to you and to hear from coaching side. if you are, and I hope Alana doesn't in the next few years, but she's new, so somewhat it does happen. But I have no imposter syndrome on what comes out of my mouth. I know exactly what I was doing. I had a conversation with someone this morning about dealing with bereavement, and I said, "You're probably not like this." Sorry, she won't mind me talking about Lucia 2 days ago, because she went to quit the plan straight away, and I said, "Why?" And I said, "You told me you wanted to be strong. You've never been tested through this plan. You've done easy shit, no offense." And I have a conversation with some people all the time. People go, "I'm strong." I say, "Why?" And they give me examples of not being strong, just being normal, getting up in the morning, going to the gym. That's not strong. Show me you lost your job. Show me you lost someone. Show me someone's in a hospital. That is the test. Strong is, for instance, strong is a scale. Doing a press up isn't strong. Lifting kilos are strong. So when I had the conversation with Lana, I remember going, Jesus Christ, I basically called her a functioning alcoholic and an addict. Fuck. But I've encoded it in a sense of, I'm trying to tell her that this is where we are, but not where we will be. So just on the side for 10 minutes, hearing the fact that Alana was strong enough to tell you something which has brought you here is music to my ears, because that's all I tell anyone, is the fact that if the plan does what it should do, it will ripple towards people around you, and everyone will call you the person I was, that and you will have people in work who will say, Nicci took me aside and had a conversation, and you'll say, because Alana told me and Scott told Alana and people told me. I'm not the originator of these conversations. But going back to boundaries, we've spoken about this for years, relationship boundaries, personal boundaries. Alana and I spoke about it in a business sense, in a work sense, in a educational sense. What boundaries did you start to form? Because what I tell a lot of people is, and we can link it back to Alana knows, just have one drink. Is that because you can't not have a drink? People, Scott, just have a sarnie. Is that because you're not able to not have a sarnie? Are you trying to make me as weak as you, as I call it? What boundaries have you found that you've had to reinvent, and what ones do you know now that may have been your downfall in the past that you now don't have?
Well, I was just your classic people pleaser. So I had no boundaries, let's be really clear. I had none. So in every area of my life, in, friendships, relationships, finances, I just had no boundaries. I just did whatever I wanted. And one of the things we resonated against is you'd also experienced lots of grief and trauma, which meant I respected you when you shared that, because before I could just say, this really bad thing happened, so I'm allowed to behave like this. And you were like, grow up, this really bad thing happened to me. Actually, all these things did. And I'm here and I really had to sort myself out. So you just held me to account. I have to say, it was hard, but it was in a really nice way, because you are lovely. And but I really needed to hear that. So we bonded over that. So I had none. So I
bonded over trauma.
Yeah, bonded over trauma, all the best, But then
sometimes aren't the only conversations with work the ones, nobody ever bonds over how well the wedding went. No one bonds over how beautiful they are. Because I say to people all the time, I'm like, everybody wants to bond over the good shit, and the good shit isn't what frames you or change you. No businessman ever went, I just sat in a business meeting and we all chat how rich we are. We all chat about the things we overcame. That's why we're rich. That's why we're beautiful. You wouldn't sit there with Gigi Hadad or Bella Hadad and go, tell me what your skincare is. They're born perfect, So what you're saying is, the things you talked about were the things which really you knew were lacking.
Yeah, which I knew I had to sort out, which I'd, essentially not done for 5 years because I was still grieving and because I just essentially didn't want to look in the mirror. So I said this the other week, if you knew me 2 years ago, you don't know me anymore. And even I'd say last year, I've really moved forward again. I never say moving on, I say move forward. So I lost friends. There's people that are no longer in my life. Love them, wish them all the best, but they were not good for me.
And why was that?
Because they liked the version of me that, ate out all the time, that paid for everything, that had a drink, that had a good time, that said yes to them, that never said no, which meant I compromised my own boundaries.
And you was just the existing person.
Yeah.
We both, we both said exactly the same with that. We're not them people, are we?
No, and looking back, they didn't care about me. They cared about the good time that I bought and the energy I bought when I was, being excessive.
Energy vampires, I call them.
Yeah. But they were
something in it for them.
Exactly. So when I started to change, I started to have boundaries. Those people, were no longer there. In fact, I remember the people who were there when I wasn't very well and was off work. And I didn't share it with loads of people, but I remember the people who turned up and I remember the people who didn't. So I had conversations with work. My famous phrase is I say no more than I say yes. So I used to say no, then go and review, and then review if I could do it. Whereas before it was always yes, I'll do that, yes, I'll do that, and then would fall over because I had to be the amazing, perfect person. And one of my massive successes at work is I just focused on 3 key things, and those 3 key things made all the difference. Whereas before I would have done everything. And that's probably a bit like your plan. It's like just focus on these 4 or 5 key steps.
Jesus, I tell people,
Then,
and
yeah,
Alana
just-
and I go
just
through this, and
that.
she's been through it. I tell, and to be fair, in my own life, I've had mentors and people, and I say to people, you think you have to just get this melee of things done at the same time, and trust me, if you nail 1, then 2, then 3, the skills you find then translate into everything else. It's why I said most bodybuilders should be multimillionaires. The amount of things you do perfectly, which you don't see the fruits of for about 2 years in terms of building muscle dieting, is a motto for life.
Yeah, and it's a compound effect. I remember us having the conversation about the compound effects. I never really understood it, and then I really started to see
You gotta
it.
live it, don't
Because
you?
you just, and again, most things I'll say to people is, this is not, most people look at me and go, this was overnight. This is 2 years, and I think the real big leapfrog was a year in. So I say to everyone, give yourself a year. And I know sometimes you have to break it down for 10 weeks, people can see that. But if you honestly gave yourself a year, and that's what you remember you saying to me, I was never a biggest dropper, but I was consistent. And those,
That's why I sent you the pictures, I think. So I can remember at the time I was saying to you, I was like, the problem you have is you're doing so many things at once. It's quite understandable to the conversation I've just had with you 10 minutes ago. It's understandable to not see where you are because they aren't the big jumps where you actually go, Jesus. But these are the ones that count, because often you can be sidetracked by the memories for the big leaps.
Yeah.
You're not size 14 to 10, but the being the 6 to 4 is, and I argue it's much harder.
Yeah.
It's like, it's inverse to business. To make the first million is very hard. To use $1 million to make 2, 3, 4 is much easier. To become lighter is the easy bit. And it is next to anyone who's done it. To become lean after that is painstakingly hard, because life often gets in the way after a year of dieting.
Yeah. But I have so much respect, like, for all of the people on your plan and who are, Alana's professional bodybuilder, so much respect for you in terms of, I see how hard you graft, and people just think, oh, but you're naturally like that. We've always been like this. I'm like, literally, no. And, we've laughed at some of the memories we've had. The famous line is we went on holiday and we were chatting, we'd met up with a group of people, and they said, how did you lot meet? And there was 4 of us from the plan there. And I just said, in my normal sense of humour, because I do have one, I said, oh, we met at fat camp. And I can say that because we'd lost, nearly 20 stone between all of us. And this guy just looks, he overheard, he went, what? I said, oh yeah, we used to be a lot bigger and we were really miserable, and now we're happy now. And we were
Can you stop
happy.
going to the plan? Watch my Instagram now. It's going to be FD Fat Camp.
Yeah, we met at fat camp.
Yeah,
but but really, what I will say, what I remember most is, we all had a great holiday. We were all, confident in our own skin. But there was a time when I wasn't. And actually, I'll be honest, I'd spent my entire life not liking myself. And one of the biggest phrases I remember that I say to myself is, I love me, I am powerful, I am beautiful, you are enough. And that's what I say every morning. And the other thing is, nothing can grow from hate. I spent decades hating myself, hating my body, pulling it to pieces. I didn't need anyone else to do that for me, by the way. I did that myself. And one of the biggest phrases, I went on a retreat, and it's, nothing can grow from hate, it can only grow from love. So that really stuck with me, that I needed to love myself because no one else was going to do it for me. And yeah, that just continued.
But don't you think almost now, 2 years on, the weight actually becomes a bit of the byproduct? And because looking at you now, well, it's right when we want to chip a bit off for a photo shoot, want to chip a bit off for a holiday, it actually is a little bit of the byproduct for when you genuinely do feel healed.
Yeah.
I think that for me was like the biggest thing.
It
and
is.
I can see that in you, like it's night and day to the person we had the chat with 2 years ago.
And even last year, we had this conversation because last year it was the anniversary of Spencer's death, and I had an off plan that wasn't approved. Again, do not advise that. And Scott had a really, frank conversation with me and said, well, what are you doing? You just need to grow up. It's just, you said to me, it's just a day. And at that point in time, I was not ready to hear that. I did the classic, whatever, not ready. And then I said to you a few weeks ago, I'm approaching that time again. And I said, I know what you mean. I actually understood what you mean now.
So I have to because there'll be people who watch this who don't understand me, follow the plan. And that just sounded more brutal than it possibly was, decoded by such a lovely human.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, and for those who don't follow me, I've lost people very close to me suddenly in the last few years. And it was something my dad said to me. And we were talking about death. It's one of the only conversations we had. And he said, and again, I have to say it this way, how you manifest grief is completely up to you. I'm just giving you something I feel has helped hundreds of people. Mm-hmm. And I'll use my example. So one of my best friends died suddenly of a brain hemorrhage 2 years ago. We knew he was ill. He was unfortunately a functioning alcoholic, but he was by no means on death's door. And when he passed, for about 3 months, he worked with me every single day. For about 3 months, I grieved every single day, and I'd cry to my wife, and his anniversary came up, and one of my friends said, "Oh, how bad will this day be?" And I went, "Every day's fucking bad. It won't be any different unless I choose to, for some reason, make it worse, make a memory more than it was." And when I spoke to him, I said, "I told you when you were 16, if love is true, you will grieve every day in your own way. An anniversary does nothing to make that worse or better. But what it does do, and this is the bit that pisses people off, it gives people an excuse who haven't been grieving to suddenly manifest grief." And I call it, and this people just hate this bit, it's the way I say it's like Valentine's Day syndrome. Mm. Every day you should be telling your partners you love them and arranging a meal if you can, or cooking for them, or buying flowers, or picking flowers. Let's go economic on everybody. That day should not, and I would be offended if my wife said, "Oh, by the way, forgot you all year, one day I'm going to make a fuss of you." I'd feel absolutely shit. And I say to people, the amount of problems that one day causes people, they overdrink, they overstress, they have arguments with people. And I've said to them, it should, in my opinion, be like any other day if you are living with grief. Mm. And I find the people who don't live with it, which is my problem with everything, they manifest it. They do so much damage once a year, and then it lingers with them. Whereas if for 364 days they'd have been dealing with it and living in it and manifesting the proper memories, because people don't die unless you stop speaking about them. Mm. And, everyone knows I WhatsApp Chris every few weeks, tell him about my child, because I don't know what's out there, and I'm an atheist, but I'm smart enough to know I don't know. And what I remember saying to you was that you're, in my opinion, you're too far ahead to be negative about a day which should be anything but negative.
Yeah. Mm. And now I'm in the space, to hear that. But this is, I guess my message is, you're constantly growing and you're constantly evolving. And this isn't a short-term fix. Like, essentially, all of us, myself and Lana included, are trying to change decades of behaviour. That is not going to happen after a year. Yeah. This is a always-on work in progress. I cannot change. I wish I could. And if I could, I'd, be a multimillionaire. I cannot change the last 30 years. But I can change the next. And we all say we'd wish we'd found you sooner, but we probably wouldn't have been ready or wouldn't have wanted to hear it, Scott. So, but yeah, this is, for me, this is a continuation and a journey. This isn't a quick fix. This isn't, people are must say it to you now, well, don't you want to stop now? You've achieved your goals. Are you still on that plan? Why are you still, watching what you eat or working out every day? Because I'm not done. Yeah. And actually those things are now a staple in my day, and they make me feel brilliant, and I perform, and I'm a better person in and out of work because of it, because I'm stable. And believe me, we are not going back there. So I won't stop, and I'm not done. I've got a photo shoot. I've got other plans.
You have a new goal up our sleeves. And I think once you've been on that knife's edge of really good and really bad, I think when you actually start, your head comes out of that water, you're just always going to put new goals there. You're always, I still get it myself. Oh, you must be done now. Oh my God, you're still doing this. Because you don't, when you've been almost dead in the ground for so long and you can actually breathe again, you don't realise you just want to grab everything with both hands. It's like seeing a colour for the first time. You just want to see what you can do, because I think not only that, it's possible now.
Yeah, 100%. If you'd said
it wasn't before, it is possible now. You can achieve whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and if you'd have said, I'd have moved to a village where I didn't know anybody at 40, 2 hours away, didn't know a soul, I never would have believed you, and had the best adventure ever. And
you've had the best summer.
It's brilliant. And when I moved, I centred it around what I spent most of my time doing, which is health and well-being. I moved because there's a farm gym opposite my house.
God, how many months was you there when I had come down? Was it coming up a year?
Yeah, coming up a year.
Year. And then you took me to your friend's place, and I met all of your friends there. I felt like a proud parent. I kept getting really overwhelmed, because I'm like, I do paddle with this one, I do that with that one, and And I did feel like a proud parent, because I was like, it's like the baby bird had flown the nest. And how do your parents feel about, because I know they thought you were wild when you went, I spoke to Alana and I'm moving.
I'm moving. Do you know what? They came up at Christmas, and my dad said, "You're your happiest person here. This is your happy place, and we're so proud of you." Yeah, so I think everyone can see, and I centered my move around. It wasn't a secret. I said, I'm going to get in Soho Farmhouse. I drew a map around there. It was half an hour from my house. Wasn't even a member. Everyone said, you won't get in. I said, I will. I manifested it. I actually got in there before I moved. And literally that was it. Once we'd had that conversation about, again, had to be agile. My house sale had fallen through. I'd got this beautiful house that I was buying. Spoke to Alana, had to be agile, plot twist, change the plan. And I still moved. And there's a farm gym opposite my house. The farmhouse is half an hour away. I then met this amazing woman whose house we went to, Heather, who's does this amazing work for menopause. She's got an amazing company, Gen M. Shout out to her. And she was the first person I met in the gym. And I said, hi, I'm Nicci. I've just moved here. I've got no friends. Do you want to be my friend? She said, follow me. And unbeknown to me, there was 5 other people that had moved to that village on their own. So I suddenly didn't feel alone. And it was the best adventure, and it's taught me that I can pretty much move anywhere now.
Oh, God,
and as long as I've got my consistent things, my food plan, a gym, access to being outdoors, going for walks, key friends in my life, and we might not see each other, we pretty much talk every day. We don't see each other all the time, but as long as I've got that support network, but I just said you can do anything in life you want to, and I'm not done yet. I'm not finished yet. There's so much more I want to do. Yeah.
So something I wanted to pick up on actually that you said, which I've never ever thought of before in 17 years of doing this, and I love because I tell everyone, I learn from everyone around me. I tend to stay quiet and just listen. Is I've always, because there's certain things I coach I've never struggled with or suffered or been through. I say struggled, suffered, been through because that's the normal way of phrasing it. And you just said something interesting then, Al. You said, for someone who has been down for so long, it's almost a new way of being able to grab at everything and do everything. And I was trying to describe hundreds of times to people why people stay on plan so long, but also not necessarily on plan, but why people don't stop. And I've never thought that it's like a rubber band. If you've been held back for so long, of course you're going to absolutely, because what I think it is certain people who've never struggled to either achieve in the loosest sense or have never been down, naturally slightly go forward every year. But if you've never been able to, and the inverse, you've been down and depressed and hurt and famished, you're going to grab at everything. And I've never, ever heard it phrased in the sense of that's why you're also driven, is because you remember never being able to be successful.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really powerful message for people to, and probably one of the most profound things that'll come out of any of these podcasts, because people always said, why are you so driven? I'm like, because I'm from a driven family, and I've never really, even when I have suffered grave misfortunes, I've had people around me to literally kick me back on a track. If you've never been on that track and you don't know how it feels, of course you're going to feel like you're literally turbocharged.
Yeah, completely. It's I don't want to dip like about me, but I haven't had parents. I haven't got a mum or a dad, and I've not had that since I was 16/17 years old. So I've had no driving force. I've been homeless, had very abusive partners. So literally I never really had me. People see me with Mr. Groom now, but there was a lot of trauma before that. So it was never, nothing was ever really within my reach. I think when I hit the rock bottom, it's like the only way is up now. Like you want to take everything. No, now I don't say no. I don't say no to nothing anymore.
And the levels keep moving.
And the levels keep moving up, and I just sort of think, yeah, I'll give that a go. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
And I think
it's confidence, isn't it?
I think it's probably madness, or I just no fear of failure, because I think, well, if it doesn't work out, it wasn't meant for me, so just give it a go anyway. Yeah.
And funny enough, that literally, I was wondering how to then get back to what you were saying. I hate, but that was way too profound a thing to miss that you picked up on. And funny enough, what I was thinking when you said it, because I always said, and funny enough, I'm going to quote him again and not get upset. Chris sent me a picture, and I'll put it up on this pod years ago. And we used to argue, and he's actually right 99% of this, and I hate it because it's my brand. I know what I'm doing, but he was more right than wrong. He always used to say, because obviously I'd coached him. And I coached him through some horrific stuff. And at one point, he was literally dead broke. He's the son of a bodybuilding champion, dead broke, girlfriend walked out on him. And I remember him lying to me about a bodybuilding prep. And he literally ate dry chicken with water and something like 4 times a day because he was broke, wouldn't tell me he was broke, and managed to get ready for the show. And I was like, why? And he was like, because the support was so good, I only had to do my bit. And he sent me a picture of a phrase, which was, a bird isn't worried about the branches breaking because it has confidence in wings. FD gives you wings. And what you're describing isn't necessarily my plan or Lana's help. It's you saying you moved to a new area because you were confident in you. And it wasn't to do with the new area or the new house. It was the fact that you were bulletproof and that you could do that again. And I always tell people, you won't fear anything going wrong if you have confidence in yourself. And I think some people look at self-confidence as arrogance, and I say it's not. No. It's understanding the hard fucking work that went into being who you are is transferable every second of every day, wherever you go, always.
Yeah. And that's one of the most freeing things about the plan. I had no self-confidence. I had no self-doubt, proper imposter syndrome. We call it, the good and bad angel. It was always sat on my shoulder, and it's the bad one that when you're not good enough. That
my angel went a long time ago.
Yeah, literally. The way I used to talk to myself was, horrible. I couldn't believe me. Nobody could say anything worse than I could say to myself. This constant voice in my head. And I think what slowly happened over the plan is that voice got less and less, and the good one got louder, which is, you can do it, Nick, well done, you got up today, you tick the boxes, and you just take, we used to have that conversation, you used to say it to me all the time, just one day at a time, just get your boxes ticked, get up early, get it done. That way, no matter what anything throws at you throughout the day, you didn't go to plan yesterday when we were voice noting, but you've got majority done, so you start the day in a win. And then if you need to just catch up a bit later, you can. But
anything's a bonus at the end
exactly,
of the day.
Yeah, that extra steps. But I think the clarity of judgment I hear, that noise I used to have isn't there anymore, and instead it's replaced with something wonderful, which is, you can do it. I believe in you, and I think that's the difference. And imposter syndrome will always be there, but it's definitely a lot less now. And the plan gave me the confidence that I think everybody wished I'd always had, or probably thought I'd got, which I hadn't. And now I definitely back me. And most people said to me with that move, they said, I think you're really brave. And it was never a phrase I'd considered. They said, you're not moving for work. You don't know anyone there. You're not moving with a partner. And I never considered myself to be brave. And I just went, no, what a wonderful adventure. Like, what a brilliant thing to do. And I should have moved years ago. But again, to your point, I wasn't ready. Yeah. But it's been the confidence it gives you to anyone who's thinking about it. Just press the button and sign up. You will not regret it.
Well, I say to people, and Alex Hormozy says it without jumping on his quote, that, shouting all the positive affirmations you can in the air does literally fuck all. You have to have incomprehensible proof internally that you are doing what you say you'll do.
Which is what the plan does every day. So you get up, you prep your food, you work out, you drink your water, you do your affirmations, you do what you say you're going to do, you lay out your gym clothes the night before. And I have consistently done that for over 2 years now. So I back me because I can look in the mirror. And I think it's like we've talked about, I don't go to the doctors similar to Alana anymore, but it's when you go to the doctors and they say, what are you doing? Oh, well, I work out 4 or 5 times a week and I eat healthily. No, I mean, we don't, do we? But when you literally... For me, when I was on my health journey, and I have bloods every year, and I really literally did not leave a stone unturned. I did everything, but I can go to the doctors now, not that I need to, and say, I eat really well. I'm not drinking. I drink 2 to 3 litres of water a day. I move every day. I go to therapy. My sleep's good. I can literally say that and not have an absolute qualm that none of that's true. Whereas before, I think you say, I eat pretty healthily, not thinking about the packet of biscuits or the crisps you've eaten. I've moved 3 times this week, but you've not really tracked your weights, and you were a bit, inconsistent the other 2 weeks before. You can honestly eyeball yourself in the mirror and say, I did it.
I think I say to a lot of people, and again, just because I'm not religious doesn't mean anyone should or shouldn't be, but I said people don't realize how much of their own God they are. And everyone's looking for something from higher above, but don't realize that literally everything you need to probably not need religion as your comfort is internal.
Yeah. We have a saying, don't we? The white horse is not coming over the hill to save you. You are your own white horse. Yeah. You need to save yourself. And there's a book you shared to read, Extreme Ownership. I am probably the person who literally is like, I could have done better. I walked into my review last week and was like, had a list that I could have done better. And my boss was like, no, you've done brilliant this year. But I still was like, no, I'm not happy that all these things could have been better. But you just be accountable. And I think that's one of the things you held me to, which Scott had taught you. You just held me to account in a really good way that was understandable and relatable to me, because you understood a bit. You're really good at that. You understood what I'd been through, and that's why lots of people resonate with you, because you've been through that journey and you're really open with it. It probably come from Scott. I might not have listened, but it's the way you said it and how you said it.
I say this to everybody till I'm blue in the face. Is
that's why
I could see in Alana the bits that I don't possess.
Yeah.
And funny enough, and people don't know this, and funny enough, someone overheard me voice note Alana the other day and went, "Did you just say you learned from voice note?" I said, honestly, anyone who knows me knows that as much as I think I know it all, I feed off other people. And Alana sent me a voice note of dealing with a client. I literally then went and Googled and YouTubed, and I was like, I need to have done that. You know, Bella and Alex, myself, have told me things when I've gone away. And people always say to me, oh, that coach who was under you. And I said, no. Yes, I may have given them 60% of that part, but 100% of the other part is theirs. And that's where they went. I've not got the perfect formula. I would say that I have the perfect formula in how to start everything, because I believe that extreme ownership, and I don't know when Jocko bought that out, Jocko. God, it might be a decade ago. But I suffered with a lack of accountability. So I always get asked by people, you know, and I've never done one, and I may never, because there's things I can't discuss because different people, which Alana knows, I'm not allowed to while they're still around. But I suffered from a complete lack of accountability that nearly destroyed my life and my daughter's completely. And it was only through, luckily, me being able to self-medicate and find my own path, I was able to understand. But I know so many people can't do that. And maybe that was things I'd internally processed from other people that came to light, and I didn't necessarily have to be taught them like I teach people. You know, I'm not a hero for not being coached. I probably have been coached, but not had a coach. And people don't understand that. I'm like, my father, my family coached us from, you know, 4 or 5. You know, people don't realize that my dad has walking down the Isle of Plains at 4, 5, asking for peanuts and drinks and making us confident that way. We had to order in restaurants. We made the phone calls to book the doctor's thing. So these things I teach people probably got forced into me. And I say forced because kids maybe shouldn't learn that, but it's the fact that being accountable, I call it the antidote to chaos.
Yeah.
Because I believe all chaos comes from the things which we deep down, if a gun was to your child's head, do you know you're doing this shit you should cut out? You'd all go, yeah, and the hammer would go back. Yeah. But no one's put us in a position to do it. And you both rightly said it, and I wanted to pick up on it, is you have to be ready. Yeah. I wasn't ready when my life combusted. And unfortunately, my 1-year-old was the reason I was then ready, because I had to sit down and luckily everyone around me went, nah, you're on your own, which was the way I had to learn. Would I do that? And Lana asked, would I do that with my son now? No, he will never be raised like I was. But did it teach me a lot of things? Somewhat toxic, some good. The way Alana encoded it to you was perfect, because you're now doing it for other people, and she does it for thousands of people. But that whole, to go back to the point, being ready, you have to be ready, because what the Extreme Ownership book teaches you is, until you are somewhat able to accept that every decision goes through you. You know, you may not have asked for the guy to have hit you, but you knew he'd hit others. You didn't have to go out that night. You knew getting drunk wouldn't help your decision making, but you did. The hard choice was stay home, self-medicate with some books. That's boring. Do the boring work. That predilects the choice of going out. Thus, what do you actually do to cure this happening again? Deal with boredom. And I think what you're saying is your standards rose, your accountability rose, and everything followed.
Exactly that. And also I got used to, you know, I had lived on my own for so many years, but I hated my own company. So I really got used to sitting in my own company. And now my default is I'm prepared to do everything on my own. If people join me, wonderful. That would absolutely be my preference, but I am absolutely prepared to do it on my own.
The move was the epitome of the top of the mountain. Yeah. The move and starting from scratch, and the rebranding of Nicci Clark.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, many people have joined us on the way, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
But isn't that funny that, you know, I'm just thinking that, funny enough, that you did it and now people want to be you. So the person you were kind of scared to become is the person people all want to become.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, it is. And if we'd never had that conversation in the garden where you told me I shouldn't be going on holiday, which I absolutely shouldn't have, and that tough love and share, and you were pretty vulnerable. You shared your experiences. We didn't know each other.
But you're still new.
Yeah.
I mean, mine was...
I wasn't even coaching because it was 2 years ago. So
I've had 14 years in my shoes. I mean, you know, some people, I say to people, it could take you a decade to fully understand where it's probably why you said the other day you pick up 14 to 16 size knickers. People will think that's wild. Men will, because men don't tend to go through the social constructs of weight gain and weight loss and sizing. We don't have extra larges don't really matter to most men, you know, apart from the whole money and dick size thing. Men don't tend to fixate about our heights and our weights and things. As a woman, people would be wildly shocked to find out that you still think you're overweight. In terms of the
brain doesn't
the
call
brain
up with the
sense,
body.
not
yeah. Oh yeah, not in like a crazy like eating sort of way in a way that you still don't compute.
You'll make this. I know what I meant.
You pick them up, and then I can't believe you throw me under the bus and said about that. Actually,
no, but do you know what? But do you know what?
It just still doesn't register.
But people won't believe it.
Yeah. It's wild. And Nicci does it too.
Well,
I do.
To go back to the COP, do you sometimes have to still juggle decision making? Because I do. My default can sometimes be absolutely fucking crazy. And I have to go, you're a dad of 2, you're a businessman, you need to do this. You're not 15 anymore and, reckless.
Yeah, I mean, big decisions, of course. But then I think the things, I just apply everything that I've learned is, take a step back, take a breath, sometimes sleep on it, write it all down and have a look at it in the morning. So yeah, it's still, there's still major decisions that I'm not going to make in an instant, but my clarity of judgment is spot on, and I trust myself and I trust my gut instinct. And that's why I continue to do everything that you've taught me, because it gives me the best clarity and my peace of mind, because I'm firing at all cylinders. Haven't got the dopamine hits, haven't got the sugar highs or the crashes. I'm working out, I feel good in myself. It's consistency. Consistency gives you clarity.
And for people who have gone through a change at any age, what would you go back 7 years and tell Nicci Clark, who'd just been through bereavement, who was approaching 40, in that period of time, what is the message you would take back?
Love yourself. It will get better. And a different journey awaits. It's not better, it's worse, it's just different. And don't waste a minute of this life.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks,
Thank
Nicci.
you.